The Bruins haven't won a hockey game in a week and a half, and the best thing for them right now is Brad Marchand coming back as a Stanley Cup champion with the Florida Panthers. Hit the music.
This is hockey right here.
Bruins! Whoa! 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 Whoa!
That's the horn. We're back. Garden Level Podcast here on the Rogue Media Network, your mom's favorite Boston Bruins podcast. Dan Conlon, Stuart here. Who had it? Second week of the season, Dan. Second week of the season is when we would be down on our luck. The Bruins have lost 4 in a row. And just when you think the apathy is going to be there because they've lost 4 in a row and they sucked last year and the tickets are out of this world expensive, the Bruins just keep coming with PR masterpieces, right? They decide to retire Zdeno Chara's number, and then they're like, hey, we'll give you Brad Marchand back on this Tuesday as a Florida Panther, as a defending Stanley Cup champion, and for the first time back in Boston as a visitor. You know, he has played in the Garden as a visitor before. Dan, you were at that game. That would be the Four Nations face-off final. But this one is going to be a little different tonight.
It will be a little different tonight, and it'll be a little emotional with the current state of the Bruins. Haven't won a game in a while, over a week to be exact. And he's coming back with a ring on his finger, another ring. And, you know, it's going to be an interesting one. I think both teams are going to be going at it. We've lost 4 in a row. Panthers have been on a slide as well. So it's a good game for both teams to get back into it if they want to, turn their seasons around. Obviously, the Panthers will be making the playoffs. They've had some injuries, but, it'll be a great game to watch. It'll be interesting to see his reception from the crowd.
Let's talk that. What's the reaction going to be? What is the reaction going to be? There's going to be a tribute video. I think they did a tribute video. They probably did one for Trent Frederick, man. Or if they're not, they're planning it. Like they do a tribute video for everyone. So it's obviously going to be there. What is the response going to be for Brad Marchand tonight?
He actually did get booed a little bit during the Four Nations. I'm not sure if that's because he was wearing a Canadian jersey or just, if that was his reception overall. But
or a lot of fans from other teams in the building that just wanted to boo Brad Marchand, possibly.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was actually kind of cool. Marchand he came back in the Garden wearing a Canadian jersey and won. And he also scored a goal at the Bell Center and got cheered. So that was an interesting week for Marchand. But he should never get booed. What he's done for this organization, Stanley Cup champion, didn't really, obviously I think more will come out eventually, but I don't think he wanted to leave. And then he left and he's like, you know what? It is better on the other side over here. So I'm going to actually stay and sign a 6-year contract as a 37-year-old. But I think there will be a little booze, but I think it'll be outweighed by the cheers, as he should. But it'll be interesting. But I think Bruins fans are in the feelings right now, and there could be some booze because of that.
Yeah, you got to be a weird person to boo him, though. Like I am definitely a boo the guy if he's a dick kind of fan, even as an adult. Like, but what are we doing here if we're booing Brad Marchand? Like you're right, he didn't force his way out. They differed on a number, and I think that was actually a good move by Don Sweeney to be like, actually, we're not going to do that, Brad. Like we're not going to go. I think the rumor was like 7.5 a year over 3 years. And at that point, you're like, age 40 season with the way the Bruins are going. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, it sucked that it happened. It was a move that I think the Bruins needed to make, if we're being honest. I don't know your thoughts on that, but it's like, I don't know what else they were going to do. They didn't have really much other draft capital. That was their fault. But I can't see him being booed. But some guys will get liquored up. Some guys will be in their feels for sure. But this is kind of unprecedented for us, Dan, for those of us of a certain age, of like, we haven't had a big time return like this for a Bruins legend, really. Like Chara came back, but it was different. Like he walked in free agency, which was okay at the time. He didn't go to a team that you absolutely hate. He didn't go and win a Stanley Cup, So we really haven't had that. I don't know what it was like when Joe Thornton came back. I don't know what it was like when Ray Bork came back. But this is kind of new, uncharted territory to see a guy come back that you might have some animosity towards because of the team he's playing for right now.
Yeah, like you said, this is not familiar territory for us. The Char return was a little different. He was 43, 44 years old coming back from the Capitals. And, we kind of just let him walk and didn't really want him anymore. So I wouldn't compare it to Char coming back, even though that was emotional. Um, Bork, I would say probably be closest to Bork. I mean, Bork got traded,
Mm-hmm.
won a Stanley Cup with another team. I wasn't around when that was happening, so I'm not sure what that feeling was like. Maybe we should ask our dads what that was like, and we can get, you know, we should have him on the pod
It
actually.
should. It should. Bring him on.
Bring him on right now. But I would just compare it to the Bork one. He won a cup with another team. Uh, his numbers in the Raptors now. Marchand will be on the Raptors eventually too. In 2032 when we need some ticket
Once
sales.
that contract runs out and the Bruins are in 10th place. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it'll be like the Bork signing or the Bork return. And it's interesting. It's something. I thought I would never. 2 years ago when we were playing the Panthers in the playoffs, to say that Marchand's coming back as a Stanley Cup champion with the Panthers, it's kind of crazy. And bringing up something you said earlier, I'm not sure with the trade. Was it good for the Bruins? Would you rather have him? At 3 years at 7.5 and no James Hagens? I'm not sure. Probably not. I mean, the Bruins weren't going to win the Stanley Cup last year, and I don't think they would be Stanley Cup favorites with him this year. But one thing
And
I
like and
would
like
like to
Marchand wasn't gonna be that player with the Bruins too.
know,
Like he dominates. He was genuinely dominant in the playoffs. Like he's probably, I don't know how they vote it, but he's probably like second or third in Conn Smythe when it comes down to it. But like, and people were so bitching about that during the playoffs. I'm like, that's not what he was gonna be here. And like that's great for him, but he was going to be the second best forward on this team with a bunch of nobodies. He was not going to be playing bottom six with Anton Lundell, who's a good bottom six player. You know what I mean? Like that was not the reality.
and that's a good point. I was going to say Marchand, playing next to Pasta here, you're relying on him to be your second best player. With Florida, he was on the third line, and I'm not sure. Do you think Florida wins the Stanley Cup without Marchand last year?
I don't know if they do, man.
He had a lot of big time goals.
Yeah, they're there because of how well they play in the playoffs and how stacked they are. But I don't know if they win it without him. He did have some big goals. He had an overtime winner in the final. I think he was their leading goal scorer in the final. He and Bennett were kind of back and forth, and Bennett got the Conn Smythe and led the playoffs in goals. But like, dude showed up, and Dan, when they were down 2-0, he scored the overtime winner in Game 3 against Toronto, a game they really didn't have any business winning. And bam, Toronto does Toronto things, and the Cats win it in 7. So maybe they don't win it without Brad Marchand.
Yeah, so it's like, you're debating, would you rather have James Hagens and the Edmonton Oilers, or would you rather have Marchand still on the team and the Oilers are Stanley Cup champions last year? So,
Well, that's well, now you frame it that way. Fuck, maybe they shouldn't have made the trade.
but yeah, it'll be interesting tonight, for sure. But yeah, curious. Might head over to the game, just see what the environment's like. But yeah, I'm sure the fans will be antsy, and we'll see how it goes. I'm sure how the game plays out will play a big role into how it ends up.
Dude, that could be a great poll for our social media. Would you rather have Brad Marchand on the team and they finish 14th, no James Hagens, but the Oilers win the cup? Or you do the trade over, you've got your hopefully future 1C, but the Panthers win it back to back. And Brad Marchand does get to win it a second time. I'm sure there's some Bruins fans who think like that. But again, not like Bork in that he had won one. Like, I'm okay if he just wins one for his career. Patrice Bergeron only won one. Zdeno Chara only won one. I'm kind of okay with that. I do I do want to highlight that Brad Marchand also this year, we kind of saw it in the last few years with the Bruins. Like, when he became an alternate and specifically became the captain, the shenanigans kind of stopped. Like, we really didn't have much the last 4 years of Brad Marchand. He wasn't licking guys anymore. He wasn't slew-footed guys. He's not a captain anymore, although he's a big part of that leadership group right now with who's hurt for Florida. But it's started to look like kind of the same old Brad Marchand this week, Dan. Did you see what he did with our old pal Rasmus Dahlin?
I did, and it just kind of brings flashbacks to non-assistant captain or only assistant
Yeah,
captain
yeah.
Brad Marchand. You know, it's weird seeing him do it for another team, but at the same time, it still gives me that joy and laughter that he used to do it with us. But it's good to see that he's back. It's funny. The shenanigans. It adds a little bit to games, and it adds a lot to the team. Marchand was a captain, so he still knows what to do at certain times.
Mm.
The Panthers have lost a few straight in a row. They don't have Kachuk. They don't have Barkov. I think he's just trying to do his job of sparking the team. And if that requires checking people in the back and taking their helmet off and throwing their helmet straps into the crowd, that's what it takes in this league sometimes.
Question though, he's only fined $5,000, which why are we finding anybody 5,000? Like, that's just not enough if we're trying to send any kind of message. Should you be fined more if you play in one of these no state income tax places? I don't know. It's technically not getting taxed, but you know what I mean? Like, you've got a little more money in the bank. Can we find a little bit more? Who the fuck finds $5,000? What's the point in that?
If you live in a state with no state tax, I think it should be 5,500.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. It's a nice round number to add to it. And if you play for the Panthers, it should double. One last thing is in this game tonight. You mentioned it. Bruins have lost 4 in a row, but so have the Panthers. Man, this Panthers team is banged the hell up. Obviously, we know Kachuk is out till probably January. It sounds like Barkov's going to be out the year, if not the regular season. We'll see. That would be some Panthers black magic shit if he comes back to the playoffs and they just win their 3rd straight cup. Gavrikov also out. Like, they have, or Kulikov. Which one is it? Kulikov. Gavrikov plays for the Rangers. They've got a bunch of dudes out right now. And Marchand's actually carrying a bit of the load. He's their leading goal scorer, if I'm not mistaken. So this could be like a big time game for the Bruins early in the season. And I think about it like this, Dan. It's one of two things is going to happen tonight. Either they're going to win and there's going to be a big fight, like when the Panthers came last year after the Marchand trade, but Marchand wasn't playing. Remember that? Zadorov knocked the lights out of Sam Bennett, and they won, and they'd won 3 in a row or something, and it's going to galvanize them for like 3 days. Okay? Either that's going to happen, or probably the more likely scenario, they're going to lose 5-2. Brad Marchand's going to score 2, and they're going to keep feeding him on the empty net to try and get him the hat trick. And it's just going to be a hellscape in there. Like, Brad Marchand coming back and doing that to the Bruins and making them lose their 5th straight game when the Panthers aren't very good right now, would have the Bruins fans just in hell. It would bring out all the worst parts of what we've seen about the Bruins the last year and a half. Like, the Fire Sweeney chants will be back. There will be crash out videos outside the Garden after the game. Like, 100%, this would be bad news Bears if the Bruins lose this game that way.
And I'm mentally prepared for the second one you just said.
I mean,
That's
you
what
kind of
I'm.
have to be.
That's what I'm mentally preparing for. It would be nice to see them kind of bounce back. They did play well at home last week for the most part. So if they can, get a good win and punch Sam Bennett in the face, that would be a lot of momentum going into a tough schedule up ahead. So it will be. I think there will be some sparks flying. Determined to be who will be the ones doing it, but uh, it's certainly a game you want to watch the full 60 minutes for, from the beginning to the end. You never know what's going to happen when the Bruins play the Panthers. Without Kachuk, it's a little different, but there's certainly a lot of players on both teams that could pick up the slack for him.
Yeah, it's going to get nasty. This could well get nasty tonight. And part of the reason why it could get nasty is because the Bruins have lost 4 straight games. A lot of talk about Marchand here, but the Bruins are looking like the Bruins that we thought they were going to be after starting 3-0. They are now 3-4-0, so no overtime losses yet, but that actually makes it worse. They go out west, they lose all three. Vegas and Colorado, good teams. Right, you'd hope you'd be lucky to get a split out of those two. You didn't. You go to Utah, which is a tough back-to-back, by the way. That's traveling in altitude. It's like 500 miles. It's not exactly like right down the road to go from Denver to Salt Lake City, and they lose that game as well. And David Pastrnak scores the only goals in that game. I mean, Dan, this looks like the Bruins team that we were promised.
It does. And, I think this team kind of lacks after last week. What's our identity? Were
Yeah.
we supposed to be that defensive team that we talked about the whole offseason? It doesn't look like it
Because
right now.
you gave up 17 goals in 4 games. Like if
Yeah.
that's what you are fucking failing. 17 in 4 games. And I think once again, sorry to cut you off, Dan, but like to go off of that, I don't think it's the goalies. That's what's frustrating. In theory, you have gotten a bounce back year from Jeremy Swayman so far, but you're still letting the goals in left, right, and fucking center. Like it's not really the goalie's problem, right? I don't know.
I mean, they're being, the numbers are pretty deceiving. If you look at the numbers and you weren't watching the games, you'd be like, wow, goaltending is an issue. Why are we paying them this much money? But it's not. There's too many breakdowns. I mean, the Carlson goal was kind of a
Oh,
good summary of what happened last week. Um,
runway.
Bruins just gave him a runway to walk right in. Um,
Yoki, how are you,
there's just
man?
too many
My
men's
guy.
breakdowns. There's really no structure defensively. It's just not great enough. Zadorov, I think, is the only bright spot right now. He leads the team in plus minus. Offensively, there's really no structure to it. We had 14 shots on goal one game. That's not going to win you NHL games. That's going to win you the lottery. So there really is no structure right now, offensively and defensively. They kind of came back to earth a little bit. It's 2 weeks in. You've had one good week, one bad week. What's the third week going to be like? There's a lot of things, a lot of question marks on this team. Line changes, line shuffling, players getting benched, your best players getting benched. Marco Sturm
Hmm.
calling out your best players. He called out, I mean, he obviously benched Mittelstadt. Says it wasn't, it's not only him, but there is a lot of people to do it. Pastrnak had some bad turnovers. He, was riding the bench for a little bit too. So, it's one thing I give Sturm props for is he's not sugarcoating it. He's not being like, "Hey, like it's 2 weeks in, give us some time."
Yeah.
He's calling out his best players. He's saying, our grinders are our best players right now, and if your grinders are your best players, then that's not good. So I give Sturm some props for calling it as it is. If he's going to be pretty honest, it's good for the fans to hear. And how are the players going to respond? You know, Pastrnak responded well in the past to getting called out when Montgomery called
Yep.
him out in the playoffs. He next game he scores an overtime goal in Game 7 against the Maple Leafs. I mean, we were going to win that game regardless. It was against the Maple Leafs, with or
Sure.
without
Yeah.
Pastrnak scoring, but that's the given. But uh, how the players respond. Is Middlestat just going to be a shell now? Who knows? But yeah, it was a terrible week. We're kind of back to reality, back to what we thought we were going to be like, but we're not playing the way we thought we would.
Yeah, and like if you're going to be one of those playoff teams, a bad weeks are going to happen to everybody. But if you're going to be a playoff team with this devoid of talent, a bad week can't be 0-4. It just can't. That's a lottery team. Like you've got to be 1-3 or get some loser points in overtime. And the Bruins couldn't do that for regulation losses in a row. And one guy you didn't mention there, man, he's coming off an injury, so I'll cut some slack here. But to me, Charlie McAvoy has not been there at all, especially on the power play, which has also sucked. The power play looks just as bad as it did last year. And that's something we talked about needs to be better. Like you can be a good defensively structured team with really good goaltending and a good power play and get in the playoffs. But with the power play the way it's going right now and Charlie McAvoy just not able to enter the zone, not able to set up anything offensively on that man advantage, like it's going to be a long season like that. And the like Achilles heel of this team for the last 2 years, really, it was covered up 1 year because they made the playoffs, but like they cannot generate any 5-on-5 offense, like any, man. And it was so brutal last year, and we kind of saw the signs of it the year before in that playoff series, mainly against Toronto, when they would have entire periods with one shot or no shots. And you're like, God damn, how does this happen in the playoffs? Like no other playoff team does this. And then it started to happen again last year. And it culminates again with a 14 shot night against Colorado. I would love to know how many games in the 100 plus year history of the Boston Bruins they have won when they have had 14 shots. And this is damning. This is from our pal Ty Anderson on Saturday night. So the Bruins finished with 14 shots. Going back to last season, this is the third time in the last 21 games the Bruins have finished a game with 14 shots or fewer. That's 3 times in the last 21 games. They did it just 3 times in the 1,964 games that came before that. This team doesn't generate jack shit 5-on-5, and they're not much better on the power play. That's how you lose 4 games in a row.
That is, and I'm glad you brought that stat up because I have another stat for you.
Oh my God. Keep bringing the stats. Keep bringing the make me cry kind of stats. Bring it on.
Through 7 games, the Bruins rank last in NHL in 5-on-5 high danger scoring chances generated by 60 minutes of play.
It's
They've
that high?
generated 5
Last?
shots on goal or fewer in the third period 3 times already.
Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. So most of the time they're chasing the game in the third period. Most of the time, 4 of the 7 games they've lost. And they can't even generate it then. Like when backs are against the wall. In a lot of those situations, the last 2-3 minutes, your goalie's not in the fucking net. You've got a 6-on-5, and they still can't put shots on. I guess you were talking about 5-on-5 for the most of that, right? But like that's crazy, man. That is crazy. This team can't. This is what I said, man. You could get everything to go right on the defensive side. You can get great goaltending. That could absolutely happen with this team. But who is going to score? Who's going to score 20 goals? Man, the way Morgan Geekie's playing right now, I don't know if there's anyone outside Pastrnak who could score 20 goals. That dude hates the puck right now. Geekie hates the fucking puck right now.
He does. And, we're talking about how are they going to score 5-on-5 goals. The bottom 9 of the team, there were a lot of question marks. We had no idea, how they were going to play. Our second line hasn't been playing great. Third and fourth lines, our best line so far has been our fourth line. But one thing we thought we knew was that our first line would put up, another possibly 60, 70 goals this season from 2 players. And so far this season, they've had 1 goal on 5-on-5 play. So that's why we've seen some line shuffling from Sturm. He demoted Geekie already. See if that, put a spark in him. But Geekie's been underperforming. The whole first line has been underperforming.
We'll see about Geekie and whether that can do much, because my main concern with him was, can you take him off a Pastrnak line? Like 65% of his points last year came from Pastrnak. Like, can you? It would be lovely if you had a 20 goal guy that you could move up and down the lineup, which Pavel Zacha almost is. He's not quite that. But like, I don't know if you can move Morgan Geekie up and down the lineup here. I don't know if he's going to be effective.
Kind of gives me like, Jake Brusk vibes. Can he be the guy on the third or second line that can put up, 25, 30 goals, or does he just have to play next to Pasta? And I know towards the end of his tenure here, he was kind of bouncing around a bit. But yeah, I'm getting a little DeBrusk vibes from Geekie. Can he produce, on the top 2 lines or just the first? Hopefully he can do both. I mean, we paid him a lot of money to do that. But we'll see. There's a lot of shuffling going around right now.
Lot of it. And it's not good 6 games into the season, which does bring me to what's going to be my favorite part of this podcast. Dan, we have to talk about Casey Mittelstadt. All right. Who had 6 games? Who had 6 games into the Marco Sturm tenure that we would start scratching Casey Mittelstadt? Healthy scratch against Utah on Sunday night. I've said it plenty of times, man. He's mostly just out there getting cardio. Like, he doesn't create anything for you offensively. He doesn't drive plays. Sometimes he scores goals, which is why he was on my high of week 1 when he scored 2 goals. But he gives you nothing defensively. And I was worried about how that would fit into Marco Sturm and trying to be this ultra defensive guy and trying to win games 2-1. Casey Mittelstadt just doesn't fit that. And we could rip him all day long, but what Craig Button said about Casey Mittelstadt this week is so alarming and so damning, and in a way very morbidly funny.
There's such a lack of centers. Can Casey Mittelstadt be one of those guys?
Well, I don't think he can be a number 2 center. I think that the Colorado Avalanche made a horrific trade moving Bowen Byram. They were trying to replace Nazem Kadri. I get what they were trying to do. Casey Mittelstadt was not the right guy. Now, I'm going to be really straightforward. I've watched Casey for a long time. I don't think it's about Casey lacking skill. I think it's about Casey lacking competitive spirit. So if you want a player with a little bit of skill that can tease you a little bit, that doesn't compete, Casey's your guy. If you're interested in winning, and the Boston Bruins are interested in winning, the Colorado Avalanche are interested in winning, I'm not going anywhere near Casey Mittelstadt.
Holy shit, Dan. Holy shit. Look, like, Craig Button's a good journalist and everything, but and so he's going to keep it real. But when you hear that, that's like, wow. That's about as scathing a review as you'll hear from about a player.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from that was if you want to lose and you want players that don't care, Casey Mittelstadt's your guy. That's what I got from that.
Man.
Seems like something personal was there. I'm not sure the history there.
Honestly, like, is there something with Craig Button's wife and Casey Mittelstadt? Like, what was that, man?
I don't know. It was a bad week for Casey Mittelstadt, getting benched and then getting called out on TV like that. But, that gives him some bulletin board material. If he wants to motivate himself, we'll kind of see what he's made of. If I was a player, I would look at that. I'd be listening to that a couple times and be like, you know what? I'm going to prove this guy wrong. Will he do that? Who knows? But
yeah, that's going to be my next question.
Tough week for Mittelstadt on the ice and off the ice.
Like, this is a guy he was picked in the top 10 and had already been something of a bust, right? Even before the Colorado trade, but he's making some money. So I don't know. I don't know how much that motivates a guy that he hasn't panned out to what he wants to be. I don't know if this Craig Button thing makes much of a difference in his world. I hope it does, but I don't know.
Hey, I'm not sure too. Like, he started his career off with Buffalo. That's where he was for 5-6 years. Did Buffalo just ruin his motivation to play defense and play motivated? Crazy look back. 2 years ago, this guy.
I was just gonna say, it didn't do it to Jack Eichel or
No.
Some of these other guys, Ryan O'Reilly. So, but maybe it did. Maybe the Buffalo experience just fucking ruins you like that.
And it's crazy to think 2 years ago, this guy was traded for Bowen Byram, who's a pretty good player in the league, and then he was just kind of a throw-in for he was a salary dump for a Charlie Coyle trade. So it's been a crazy 2 years for him. Coming into the year, I think a lot of people didn't like his contract and they were concerned about everything that we've seen so far. But if you're a Bruins fan and you don't want him on this team anymore, you got to hope he does start playing well, because no team's going to want to take that contract. So
it might be the worst contract on the team. Like, he's got another year after this. Yeah, he's got another year after this at 5.75. That's $1 million more than Zacha's getting paid, and he's not Pavel Zacha, man. Like, this could be the worst contract on the whole team.
Yeah, I would say last year everyone hated the Zadorov and the Lindholm contracts. Who that still has a lot of term left.
Salo?
Yeah, Corpusalo. There's a lot of candidates we could talk about.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say right now it probably is. Lindholm has been playing better. Zadorov could be your best player on the team right now through 2 weeks. Corpusalo is making big time saves. The only positive from this is the term. It only one more year left, but that still is a big chunk of change. If this free agent class, there has been some free agent signings. A lot of big names are off the board now, but an extra $6 million in free agency this offseason could go a long way. They're restricted or unrestricted. You can make a good trade for someone if you get rid of that contract. So right now, I'm hoping Mittelstadt takes that benching well. He listens to that clip and is like, you know what, I'm gonna play better. And if he doesn't like playing here, he should want to play himself out of here and get traded at the deadline. But
Yeah.
we'll
I
see.
don't know. I don't know what that deal entails. Like you're gonna have to eat salary or attach a good player to it, like a good player. You know what I mean? Like I don't think anyone's touching that. And maybe this is the Craig Button swaying me, but I don't know if anyone's touching that. And he's stuck. He's the second center. He's not good enough to be a first line center, even offensively, but doesn't do any of the defensive responsibilities to really be a center at all in this league. And you're not going to bury him on the fourth line, really, because that fourth line's going well right now. You're not putting him on the third line because you want Fraser Mitten to develop. Maybe there's a case of, hey, move Fraser Mitten up the lineup, but you also want your third line to be the matchup line, and Fraser Mitten is a defensive center. Casey Mittelstadt is the exact opposite of that. And he's not, the other thing, again, is it's like we talk about his offense. It's not like that's anything special. He hasn't created a goal. I mean, he scored 2 goals, but he hasn't assisted a goal this year. He doesn't drive play. So can you just stick him on the wing? Like Zacha's clearly the better option at center, which is crazy. But like, can you even stick him on the wing at this point?
I mean, I think Sturm is trying to do everything he can, so I could see that coming in the future. I mean, we've already done so much shuffling where I wouldn't rule out anything like that. I think Sturm's going to do whatever he can do to try to get a spark in this guy, and moving him to wing could be the next option. But yeah, it's not looking good so far, and it's not what you want from someone making $6 million a year. Um,
What a waste.
but you gotta hope he turns it around, because whether you like him or not, if you want him off the team or on the team, he's got to provide some value to other teams. And maybe some team does play the deadline tax for him. You never know. There could be a desperate team that, I mean, the
Maybe.
Sabres wanted him, then the Bruins wanted him. Maybe they could take advantage of, maybe a Sweeney could pull off another nice trade. But yeah, right now it's not looking too good.
Yeah. And I think we all agreed at the time, even in our preseason episode, we said this, like that trade in the Bruins' mind was Charlie Coyle for Will Zellers. And Colorado said, actually, you got to take this guy too. We don't have any prospects. Will Zellers is our only one. So if we're giving you him, you got to take on Casey Mittelstadt. They're like, fuck, fine. It will help the tank, but the dude is absolutely useless. I mean, he's totally useless at this point. And at least you didn't extend him like Henry Jokiharju, who was also useless. But you're going to need Will Zellers to actually be a goal scorer in the NHL for that deal to look good, which the kid's got plenty of promise, but we're a long way from that. He's 19. He's only played in the USHL. He's just started at North Dakota. He's got a goal there, but like you're going to need him in the next 2 to 3 years to be a legit goal scoring player in the NHL. And I'm talking like 20 plus goals for that to feel like a good trade. But right now, Casey Mittelstadt, 6 games in, deemed not good enough to play for this team that had lost 3 games in a row in regulation leading up to it. Team that created 14 shots on goal the night before. Marco Sturm said, you know what? We just can't have Casey Mittelstadt out there. We can do better than Casey Mittelstadt. So, wow. Just wow at this point in the season. So, I guess we got to ask Dan, if it's not Casey Mittelstadt, is there anyone that we can bring up at this point? Couple of names that just missed the cut at the beginning of the season for the Bruins. You look at some of the guys putting up numbers in Providence. Do you expect any of these guys to come up anytime soon?
It would have been nice for a bunch of these guys to be on the team already if they didn't sign all these bottom 6 players.
Yeah.
After we did
You're
that,
right.
I knew there would be a log jam. And as much as I would, they have been playing pretty well. Merkulov and Steves, Blumel.
Merkulov leads
Pacha's
the
doing
AHL in
well.
scoring. Georgi
They are
Merkulov.
they are doing everything they can do to get called up. Unfortunately, I think it's too early in the season to do that. And where are you going to put all these players that you sign? You have a lot of veterans on this team on one-way contracts. as much as I would love to see, Patra on the second line, I think it's too early to do it. Um, I think, if an injury pops up, which they always do, that may, fast track that. But I think they're going to ride this out for a few more weeks. Sturm hasn't shied away from doing something drastic. Benching him was certainly something, a little shocking. But I think we're a few weeks away from that. Uh, I think Sturm just wants to play around and see what he actually has in them. And he kind of has a good idea already, but I think he's going to give people a few more games or a few more weeks to kind of, settle themselves in the lineup and see what he has. He has a bunch of new players on the team, so he's shuffling the lines. I think he's just going to kind of go through every route possible before he starts getting rid of people, or trading people away, or cutting them, releasing, sending them to waivers, however you want to do it. But the one bright spot of the season so far is how the Bruins players have played that aren't even on the team. The ones who are playing for BC and Providence right now have been, I think, the bright spot of the season so far. And it's something that goes back to the deadline last year. You wanted to rebuild your prospect pool, and you did that by trading away 3 or 4 good veterans. And now you're kind of reaping the benefits of it a little bit. I'm not going to say Merkulov is going to be a top 6 player in this league. He did get released on waivers, and no other team claimed him. So he's not your top prospect, and he's had a few goes at it as well. But he may be a guy. He's never played for Sturm before. He'll probably get a shot under Sturm. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't see anything drastic in the next few weeks.
Fuck. I was really hoping you would. I was really hoping you would see something drastic. You bring up a good point in there, which is it's kind of rearing its ugly head right now. Of like, we knew in the summer when you went in and brought in Tanner Jeannot and Sean Corrali, Mike Yasimont, like we knew right away, okay, like that is Don once again saying we don't want to play these fringe prospects that we have. We're not going to do it. We're going to be uglier and tougher, but we're not going to be any better with paying these guys or playing these guys. But what's so funny is right now, your top prospect in Providence is still Matthew Patra, and he's being blocked by Casey Mittelstadt, not by Sean Corrali, because you didn't really want to play him on the fourth line. But this would be the perfect opportunity for him to come up and play for Casey Mittelstadt if Casey had some faux injury that you just made up, bruised ego, lower body injury out for 3 weeks, and bring Matthew Patra into the fold, keep Zacha on the wing, who's obviously strong defensively, and so he might make up for some of the things that Matthew Patra is still trying to learn defensively, but he's playing with real NHL guys on the second line, potentially with Morgan Geekie on one side with the way they've been shuffling the lineup. Like, that would be perfect. That would be perfect to bring up Matthew Patra right now, but we're stuck with Casey freaking Mittelstadt, man. Like this is why I'm like, Will Zellers better become a 25-goal guy or a 30-goal guy at this point, because I'm stuck here watching fucking Casey Mittelstadt instead of Matthew Patra, who should be the future of this team. Like that's where I'm getting really frustrated here.
As you should, but it was just mismanagement in the offseason by Don Sweeney. And he messes things up in the offseason, and then he kind of fixes them at the trade deadline. So I think we're kind of hoping Don Sweeney does some finessing this deadline to kind of make up for some of the mistakes that were made in the offseason. Bruins players need to be doing well for us to trade them. So that's what I was saying a little bit earlier. Like, we need some value. As much as easy it is to to hate on these guys, if they start playing well, maybe we can get a team to trade for Casey Mittelstadt. Maybe we get a team to trade for Asimont if he does well, and a team needs a fourth line guy for a playoff push, or Corpusalo plays good and some team goalie is injured, and you could trade him to that just to get him to the playoffs. So
Yeah, maybe.
it'll be an interesting few weeks.
We got to see what Chicago's up to. Chicago loves eating money. Chicago loves trading for contracts and just taking that cap hit. They've done it a couple times over the last few years. They were involved in the Mikko Rantanen trade because of it. That's who we need to get on the horn with, is Chicago.
They also love ex-Bruins players. We know that.
They do. There was a game the other night, dude. Chicago played Vancouver. I didn't see how it ended, but at one point it was 2-1, and literally every goal scorer in the game had once played for the Bruins. It was Donato, Bertuzzi, and DeBrusque had scored, and I was like, man, you have to be an ex-Bruin to score in this game. And that wasn't even a game that had Nick Foligno. Obviously, he's still taking that time away with his daughter, but like you just had to be a former Bruin to do it, to score there. Situate's own Ryan Donato scoring in
30
that
goal
game.
scorer.
30 goal scorer, man. I saw him last year, watched him live, man. What a player. What a player. Leading scorer of your Chicago Blackhawks, Ryan Donato. That kind of shows you how things are going down there in Chicago and how they've gone over the last couple of years or so. So you said it, like the best thing going for the Bruins right now are the players not playing for the Bruins. That starts in Providence. It also happens at the college level. And could Gavin McKenna now slip to the Bruins? Because I don't think we're under any illusion the Bruins are going to get the number 1 pick in the draft just because they'll fuck it up somehow. They won't get it. But now, Dan, there are some rumors out there that Gavin McKenna's slow start in college hockey could mean he slips out of the number 1 spot. And by slow start, I mean 6 points in 6 games, only 1 goal, and is a -4. Now, this seems crazy because Gavin McKenna is this generational prospect. He's supposed to be the best one since McDavid. But hear me out, Dan. Hear me out. He's on a point-a-game pace right now. It's the exact pace James Hagan's had last year, 37 points in 37 games, playing for a good Boston College team. And he was the consensus number 1 guy before the year started, and he slipped all the way down to 7. Are we seeing the Gavin McKenna Penn State slip happening right before our eyes?
I hope so. I certainly
hope so too, man. I'm in. I will take Gavin McKenna at 5. Oh no, sure. Twist my arm. I'll take him.
I we'll have to wait and see on this. I think McKenna to the Bruins would be crazy. If you said that, I would assume we'd have to have the first overall pick. But I would say the same thing last year about Hagens. If Hagens was on our team and you had to fast forward time, I'd be like, oh wow, we got the first overall pick in the draft. That's awesome. But the league won't allow that. The Bruins cannot get any draft fortune. We know that. That's illegal. But
they owe us. They do owe us one. But you're right. They freaking owe us one, man. They've given the Penguins 2. They'll probably give them a 3rd with McKenna. They threw the Rangers a bone a couple years ago after screwing them in the Crosby thing. Like we are owed one here, I would say.
And maybe they don't want McKenna to go to the Sabres. Maybe they're like, you know what? Let's not ruin his career and let's let the Bruins get this guy. But this draft class is a good draft class. It'd be interesting to see. It's too early to tell, but anything's possible. I mean, it's October. The draft is in June, so anything's possible. I think this may be our way to cope with Jack Eichel. We're not getting Eichel anymore, but McKenna's our guy now. But McKenna and Hagens would be a promising future for us, and that would set us up pretty well. But I think that's our new fantasy, McKenna to the Bruins, now that Eichel and McDavid are gone. So I think we kind of run with this. I think we just hope he continues to do bad. Maybe we lie about his height. Maybe we tell people he's 5'10" now. Change his Wikipedia profile.
Yeah. That's a good idea, man. We can do that. 5'10", 165.
Penn State hockey player.
Can't have him. Damn, man, that would be difficult. That would be difficult if he's if people start saying that about McKenna around the draft combine, this kid's just not big enough. Then we're really losing it. We're really losing it. Like, this kid is legit, man. Like, I mean, you see any of the numbers, watch any of the highlights, like, this kid can play anywhere. And it is a good testament to college hockey now that he comes in and is only a point a game for the first 3 weeks, I guess. And Penn State's barely hanging on in these games. He's not doing a lot defensively. It's like, oh, wow, go figure, man. He's an 18-year-old going from the WHL, where he was like the greatest player ever, to the NCAA. I can't believe there's a bit of a learning curve, especially in the defensive game. Dude, any way that the Bruins end up with Gavin McKenna, I take it. Short of trading Pasternak, like any other way you can get to Gavin McKenna is good with me, and it will help cure the first few seconds of my day, Dan, when I wake up and I don't really know anything yet. I don't really know what day it is, what time it is, and there's that split second when I wake up and I don't know that Jack Eichel has re-signed with the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's the best goddamn part of my day. It really is. Anyway, I'm going to cry if I keep going there. Can I give you a name? Because this 2026 draft class is loaded. It goes beyond McKenna. Can I give you a name to look out for the Bruins in the 2026 draft class?
Let me hear it.
The name, Dan Conlon, the name is Tynan Lawrence. Okay. This dude ripped up the USHL last year, 54 points in 56 games. He is a two-way center that is rated in the top 10 by everybody. No one's ranking him 1 or 2, but he's in the top 10 in every ranking we're seeing right now. He's young, okay? He's an August birthday, 18-year-old, still playing in the USHL this year from Muskegon, okay? He won the Clark Cup last year, their Stanley Cup in the USHL. He won the Clark Cup and the playoff MVP last year. And, oh, yeah, in the season, draft +1, you know where he's going to be playing? He will be playing for the Boston University Terriers. So it lines up exactly for what Don Sweeney wants, okay? Other than the fact that he's not really slow and hits people, like punches people. Other than that, he fits exactly it. He is a two-way center
6'7"
who drives play. He's not 6'6", so Don might hate him for that. But he's a two-way center. He's going to be playing his college hockey in Boston, and he fits all of the needs that the Bruins have needed offensively over the last 2-3 seasons now. Now, of course, I say that he's obviously going to be 2 or 3 seasons from now, but that would be a guy that if you miss out on the McKenna sweepstakes, he would be perfect for the Bruins. And when you talk about what he accomplished in terms of his team winning the Clark Cup and him being the MVP of it, like that sounds a lot like me to Caleb Denye of last year's draft, who I bugged you about. And I was like, dude, if it comes down to Caleb Denye and James Hagan, it's like, I have a real conundrum here. And I didn't say that about anybody else with James Hagens. Nobody else. I was like, Hagens would do it. Denye ended up going before him to Utah. But like that was the kind of player I was so excited about, man. Clutch, skilled, two-way. Tynan Lawrence fits that to a T, and we could see him playing in our backyard next year. If it's not Gavin McKenna, to me, that is the freaking guy. Tynan Lawrence is the freaking guy. Have I convinced you yet?
I mean, you convinced me, and I think you convinced Sweeney. I mean, an American kid going to college in Boston, I think you're hired.
Yeah, he's Canadian,
like,
but
say
yeah,
less.
I meant to.
Oh, he's Canadian.
I meant to keep that part out. He is Canadian. Yeah, sorry.
That might throw a wrench in things.
It's difficult.
But
That's difficult. Yeah.
now that you said that, I'm not sure if that's enough. But yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, we're in October, and you know, I'll admit I did look at NHL Tankathon this morning. We have the 10th
So
pick right
we've
now.
both relapsed. We have both relapsed. It's second week of the season, and we've looked at Tankathon, and I've clearly looked at a bunch of 2026 NHL draft content last night. So we have both fallen off the wagon here, second week of the season.
Oh yeah, big time. You know, it's good to be prepared. We're just preparing ourselves for another top 10 pick. And I think we're being realistic as some Bruins fans still hold out hope that we'll make a wild card and, you know, make a push for the Stanley Cup this year.
Woo!
But yeah, I think we said it earlier in the year, you know, if you'd rather a wild card loss over, you know, a top 5, top 10 pick, you're not thinking about what's right for the long term over the Boston Bruins. If you could get a top prospect to pair up with Hagens, to pair up with Pasternak, you know, that's what's best for the Bruins. And, you know, I think we got a glimpse of it last week. We went 0-4. I think it's right to at least do your due diligence like you did and start looking at the top guys for next year, who possibly could be future Bruins and future first liners on this team.
Can't wait. Let's actually take a quick look at some of the other parts of the future while we think of the children.
Think of
here.
the children. Won't somebody please think of the children?
Gavin McKenna, only 1 college hockey goal this year. Dean Letourneau, 2 college hockey goals this year, Dan. He has a game tire at Minnesota. The kid is finally coming into something. 2-2 in 4, 2 goals, 2 assists. James Hagens, 2 and 3 for 5 points in 4 games. BC, pretty good team, but you're getting good results out of both of those guys. Have you started to flip the switch a little bit on Dean Letourneau?
I have. I think obviously, expectations were high. That was the Olmark deal where they picked him.
Yep.
So yeah, Olmark was a fan favorite, Vezina winner. So whatever they got in return for him obviously was going to be scrutinized if they didn't do well. So he had a lot of pressure coming in, and he did play bad last year. I don't think he would argue against that. Not what you want a first round pick to do in the first year of college, but some say he shouldn't have gone that year. He's doing better this year. He's making goals. His goals were pretty nice. It's not like a tap in like a 6'7" guy normally does. He's had some nice goals. He's using his body to his advantage. He's a little bit more physical this year. So I am impressed. I think he's on their third line. So, he's playing against, the matchup line. He's playing up against high-end talent. I think he's just, rebounding this year. We'll see how the rest of the year goes, but so far so good with him. That's what you want to see your first round pick do.
I'm turning. I'm here. Dean Letourneau, 1C next year. I'm in. Big Dean Letourneau, 6'7", throwing that frame around. Sure, let's just go with it. That's the prospect report. And that kind of gives us some light at the end of the tunnel, these prospect watches as we go on. One more thing that can definitely get us laughing rather than just simply crying at the Bruins' futility is our tweets of the week, Dan. This is a new segment that we wanted to throw out there of like just things that will kind of make us laugh a little bit, kind of get us up towards the end of the show. And it's going to be Bruins related tweets that we're looking at. We share tweets with each other all week long. And so we're like, why don't we just start highlighting the funny ones here? And we already did Ty Anderson early in the pod, but he comes back again in tweets of the week. Dan, you're going to love this one as just obscure Bruins guy. Here we go. So there's this DraftKings commercial. DraftKings, by the way, proud sponsor of the Rogue Media Network. And a guy in there is wearing a Bruins jersey, the 2007 to 2025 Bruins jersey, number 14. And Ty says some insane possibilities. Okay. Brett Conley, Paul Postma, Joe Corvo, Ian Mitchell, or Walpole's own, the favorite Walpole athlete of this show, is Chris Wagner. Dan, if you're wearing that style number 14 Bruins jersey, who is on the back?
There's too many good possibilities to pick from,
so many,
but if I have to narrow it down, I would say you could go local with Wagner. Everyone loves a local guy, but
Wags.
Connolly, we traded 2 second-round picks for him, so he must have done good for us. So my guess is going to go Connolly. I mean, he was a high-profile Bruin. Maybe 14 will be in the Raptors one day next to Char because of him. What he did for this team was, amazing. And then we only had to give up 2 second-rounders for him, so it was a great trade.
Yeah, who needs him? The Lightning don't do anything with draft picks. I got to go Joe Corvo. Here. A guy who really, really, I think represents a great time in my childhood. That was the defending Stanley Cup champs team. Joe Corvo was on there. Just no offensive ability at all. Like just not a puck mover at all. In fact, they ended up replacing him later in the season with Greg Zanin, who just same thing. Same thing, not going to carry the puck for you. And here's such a nerdy thing that a nerdy way that Joe Corvo entered my life in the last couple of years is I'm a nerd, man, huge history nerd. I went back and I looked at the at the hockey reference page of Lionel Hitchman. Lionel Hitchman, he's the first guy to get his number retired with the Bruins, number 3. He played in the 20s and 30s. He was a defenseman. And I went to see his similarity scores on Hockey Reference, and they only do it based off like, point shares and stuff. That's how you can do it. So there's really no way to compare a defenseman from 100 years ago to anybody today. But one of the similarity scores was Joe Corvo. And I'm like, wow, like here's Lionel Hitchman's a Hall of Famer, like one of the best defensemen of his day. And his point share Hockey Reference similarity score is Joe freaking Corvo. I do have a number 14 Bruins jersey. It's just not this one. I have an older 14. So I like that number. I think it's a good jersey.
It is. It is. A lot of good history.
A lot of good history. It's Sergei Samsonov, by the way, for those wondering at home. It is Sergei Samsonov, who was at the time, first starting out, definitely my favorite Bruins player. So don't know how much I'd like him today, if we're being honest. There's a lot of Casey Mittelstadt there with Sergei Samsonov. Unfortunately, he's better, but yeah.
I actually have a Samsonov jersey too. It was my first Bruins jersey. I think we went to a game in the early 2000s, and I was there with my family. They wanted to give me a jersey, and I didn't want to go with the status quo Thornton jersey, so I went with Samsonov. And my family was
You're like,
"Are you
I'm
sure
here
you
for the
want it?"
guy that's here for the long haul. He lasted, I think, 3 more months. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, "Shouldn't you go to the Thornton jersey?" I'm like, "No, I like this guy. There's too many Thornton jerseys. Got to go against the wave." And little did they know, Thornton was no longer on the team for that much longer.
Does it still fit?
Not me. No, fits the dog though.
Damn, nice. Okay, I was gonna say we could both wear them on a show once, but I guess not. Dan's tweet of the week, which is kind of a video. We're cheating a little bit. It's a video, but it's pretty funny. Unfortunately, the Blue Jays have advanced to the World Series, and Seattle's out. But when Seattle went up 3-2, there was this grand slam in there, and when you're looking to get a sports arena hyped, Dan, there's really only one way, one pattern you could go with. So listen closely, folks.
It's another fastball. It's driven the other way. It's got a chance. It's a grand slam.
Oh man, no matter what, I was like, the Toronto Maple Leafs fans are tormented by by the Bruins goal horn. If you look back in the past of all the Game 7s and the history of it we've had in the past 15 years, the Bruins goal horn, you could just, when you hear the Bruins goal horn, I think you just think of a Maple Leafs fan with their head bowed and crying. I just think it's funny how no matter what the sport is, the Toronto fans can't escape the Bruins goal horn, whether it's in the NHL playoffs or MLB playoffs. I just thought, that was just bringing flashbacks to everything that we've gone through the past decade in hockey, and now they're experiencing it at a Seattle baseball game.
It is funny, man. It is fun. Like, you just can't escape it. You think you're safe in the ALCS 2 rounds after the Red Sox were eliminated. Like, you think you're safe. And that might be the last Toronto heartbreak that we get until the spring, because the Jays are in the World Series, and I'm not exactly rooting for the Dodgers. So maybe Vlad Jr. has erased the Leafs curse by wearing the Matthews jersey before a Game 7. All-time wild, ballsy move, but it did pay off. It did work out, which is crazy. But I guess this is a Bruins show, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on the day. Dan, before we get out of here, let's look ahead. We obviously got the Panthers game tonight, which is what everybody's circled on the calendar. But looking over the next couple of weeks, it's kind of favorable in some spots for the Bruins in that they're home a lot. They don't have to travel very far. Like, they don't travel out of the time zone for like a month here. And it's a lot of divisional games, which is good and bad, I guess. You've got Ottawa twice. Ottawa's not skating well right now. You've got Colorado again this weekend at home. You've got Toronto twice. You've got Carolina twice, who just only lost their first game of the season last night. So it's a lot of division games, but at least you can't use like that West Coast thing as an excuse.
You can't. And, this will be very telling the next few weeks, what is this team made of? You're going against a lot of divisional teams. Got to point out, there are a lot of injuries in the NHL this year. Brady Tkachuk out a while. He injured his wrist, I believe, or something.
Yep.
But he's out for a while now. The Tkachuk, Barkovs, they're out now. So it's an opportunity for the Bruins if they wanted to climb back. If they wanted to, get the ship on the right course. This would be the time to do it. Make some statements against good teams. And time will tell. We've been on a roller coaster and it's only been 2 weeks in the season. We were very high after 1 week and now we're very low after another week. So I think we just got to take it week by week. If they come out and do well in these next few weeks, maybe they can make the playoffs again. But for the better of the franchise, it'd be nice to just develop some young guys and lose some games this year. But this will be a very interesting few weeks. You're going against a lot of good teams and they're at home in front of your own fans. You don't want the Boo Birds to come out this early in the season. So we'll see how it goes. And it starts tonight with Marchand returning.
Oh, man, is that going to be fun? Is that going to be interesting? And the next time we're on your airwaves, we will have the preview of Matthew Schaefer's first trip to the Garden. Boy, is he looking good so far. The Islanders, not so much, but him for sure. But let us know what you think about Marchand's return, about Casey Mittelstadt, about Gavin McKenna, whether this team should tank. Let us know in the comments section below or tweet at us. We've got Garden Level on Twitter, chirping, just general bullshittery happening on Twitter as it always is. So get to following us there on TikTok as well, and like and subscribe to get you here every week talking about the Bruins from two guys just trying to survive the Don Sweeney experience. Check out the other videos up on our YouTube channel. We clip all the segments as well. For Dan Conlon, I'm Cam Stuart. We will see you next week on the Garden Level Pod.